Oh, thank you very much. It's a thrill to be here today. And whenever I have my bio read, I'm either really engaged or I can't hold a job for the life of me, so I'm trying to figure that out. I think we have some technical things that we wanted to... It's typical that, as the techs are, every time I do something with technology included, it doesn't work for me, so I have to get people to kind of help me out a little bit. So warm it up. While it's warming up, I can tell you quickly about the book, and the book is a perfect example of how social media works. For a number of years, I've been writing a blog called The Cool History of Cleveland, sort of modeled after Thomas Mulready's Cool Cleveland newsletter that goes out every week. And I thought I was writing that in complete obscurity, and one day I get a phone call from History Press saying, you know, we've been reading your press and your blog on cool history. We've been following it. We think it's really cool. We'd like for you to write a book. I thought it was my best friend pranking me when I got the initial phone, like, whatever, dude, click. And to their credit, they called me back. I think they get that reaction quite a bit. And so we wrote a book called Lost Cleveland, which details 7 architectural gems that used to be in the city of Cleveland, only one of which is still around, which would be Severance Hall. And I honestly thought if I sold one book, it'd be a huge success. We're around 1,400 copies and continues to sell great. So I just signed a deal yesterday to write 2 more books for History Press. So, you know, writing a blog, if you do it enough and you're consistent, magic will happen. I mean, you just need to be consistent about it. So today we're going to talk about social media, the opportunities and trends for the small business, and we'll just sort of dive right in. I get this question a lot, what exactly is social media? And I always throw up this, by the way, there's nothing like starting a family-friendly chamber meeting with a very risque quote. And Avinash Kaushik, who's a Google evangelist, sort of hitting it on the head, meaning we're at the top of the first inning. None of us really know what the hell we're doing with social media, including Google, by the way. And Google, everyone thinks of Google as the big bad company. It's done really great things, the high stock price. But if you look at their social media strategy, and they've had 3, Google Buzz, Google Wave, and now they got Google Latitude, none of them have been successful at all. And so you're talking about a company that's got all the power and money in the world, and they're not doing it right either. Here's just a typical Wikipedia, and social media is this blend of Web 2.0, where we're using photos and content and movies and ideas and little quip, you know, little crisp little text messages, essentially, sending out information to people in a quick fashion. Listen, if you give me a martini, I will tell you every secret I know in the world. I would have been the worst spy. Essentially, social media is word of mouth. I mean, you could boil it down to just that. It's these little electrical platforms that allow you to speak to the masses and allow them to speak back to you. Not that revolutionary, it's just in a different format. 80% of Americans use it, some sort of social media platform on a monthly basis, and that number obviously is increasing. 2/3 of the global population that has internet access is on some sort of platform in social media. I never thought I would see this in my lifetime, where social media has overtaken adult entertainment, which, by the way, was the leader in e-commerce and content development. Not saying I read or watch any of it, I'm just saying that they were really the pioneers in this particular activity. And email. I mean, being on Twitter and Facebook has exceeded email as an application on the internet. When Rupert Murdoch is talking about how it's affecting his company, I mean, this is one of the most powerful pioneers in the press and is rapidly changing his focus, then you know you're onto something. Eric Qualman, very well-known analyst on Wall Street, you know, this word of mouth allows you to drive, you know, the people are now driving the economy. It's not the corporations. Remember back in the day, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and we had 2 dailies, right? The Journal-Herald in the morning, we had the Dayton Daily News, and had all these TV stations. The old way of promoting your message was you bought an ad on newspaper, on radio, on TV. The only response that you knew you got was someone bought something, and it was kind of ephemeral. How did you hear about this, whatnot? You're getting instant gratification in your messages today. If you give me a second, this happened when I was here at the front table. I'm always connected, allegedly. I take the weekends off. So I'm at the front table, and a young lady named Allison wrote a little tweet saying she was really excited pleasure to meet you. So Allison tweeted that looking forward to the State of Social Media luncheon with the Tech Czar today at 11:30. I tweeted back while I was at the front table. And I also am now following you on Twitter. So that's how connected we are using social media. One of my first jobs coming out of grad school was at National City Venture Capital. We were investing in media companies. I remember we bought a lot of radio stations. And we always use this metric. How quickly can a medium get 50 million users? Because then you've got something called critical mass, and you've got a lot more weight and power. And so I'm just measuring, for example, how long did it take radio, for example, to reach 50 million listeners? It's 38 years, which is crazy. You see those old movies, and everyone's huddled around that radio. And you thought it kind of generated some critical mass quicker than 38 years. Of course, for TV, it only took 13. Commercial internet, 4. You starting to see a trend? iPod, 3 years, and that came out in 2001. Doesn't that look as dated as the fax machine? Last year, in 9 months, Facebook got 100 million users in 9 months. By the way, in 9 months, the iPhone applications hit 1 billion users. So there's this collapsing of technology all around us. And quite honestly, if it wasn't for the mobile device, I don't know if these social media things would have taken hold in resonance, but 80% of all Twitter traffic is done through a mobile device, i.e. today. Every minute, 13 hours of YouTube videos are posted up. I love watching YouTube, but if I had to watch everything, I hope I have longevity in my DNA, because it's going to take 412 years of just today's stuff, and they're uploading more and more every day. 1.2 billion videos on YouTube are viewed a day. It's a stunning amount of videos. 13 million Wikipedia articles. By the way, 65% of all new content on Wikipedia is not in English. And a little later on in the presentation, I'm going to be talking about the 5 new trends that are popping up, and one is called knowledge aggregation, obviously Wikipedia being one of those first. 4 billion photos on Flickr, because everyone wants to show off their grandkids and their vacations to make others jealous, right? That was a growth rate of Twitter in 1 month to 1,300%. 65 million tweets a day. I'm a heavy user, so I'm imagining 20 million of those are mine. But that's a significant number. I mean, that's a lot of volume. People are using Twitter now as their news feed in a lot of respects. And I remember when Twitter sort of jumped the shark for me is when that airplane crashed in the Hudson. I was getting alerts on my phone before the AP wires picked it up and pushed it out onto the internet. And that included video and photos. This is how many users are now on Twitter, 165 million people, of which 25 to 27 million a day are actually opening up that application. So November of 2010 was an interesting month because it was the first month in the last 35 years that US productivity went down. I have a suspicion this is a big reason why. When you're using 5 billion minutes a day on Facebook, and that's just a US number. So a lot of people say, why should I even be in Facebook for my business? Well, it's the 3rd largest country in the world, if it were a country, and that's where people are, and businesses gravitate to where people are. By the way, the Chinese version is larger than that. I mean, they're pushing almost 700 million people on their own version. I thought it would be interesting to give some, and I know I got to 1 o'clock, so my show is going to be short, but I got some quick case studies before we get into the real trends. It's a fairly well-known case study of United, where a gentleman with his band was flying from Nova Scotia through Chicago to an event in Omaha, Nebraska. He's part of this country rock hillbilly band. And he's sitting in the back of the jet, and he happens to look out when they land in Chicago, and he notices that the baggage handlers are throwing his equipment out onto the tarmac. Not politely, hey, here's a guitar. Like literally throwing them out onto the cement. And so he did everything right. So he goes up to the stewardess like, hey, your dude's out there throwing my equipment around. Well, that's not my problem. Go talk to the special rep at the front gate. So he goes talk to her. She gives him the same runaround. Ends up at the counter. Can't help you. We don't know if it's broken because we haven't opened up the bag yet, and it's already on your next flight, that type of stuff. 9 months. Every month he's calling United. Finally, he tells a special rep, I'm going to make 3 videos called United Breaks Guitars, and I'm going to put them up on YouTube. All right, the first one goes up, and within a week, 3 million views. A week, 3 million views. Also in that same week, their stock price went down 5%. So now, it's, outside of his request, I need $1,600 to break my guitar. They lose billions of dollars in shareholder value. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of other things going on at the same time, but it was interesting to see that video hit and the stock price shift in the same way. Domino's Pizza, another famous, both these included videos, by the way, so I think there's a special marquee with videos, but United, you had two rogue employees in a Danbury, Connecticut store playing around with food, bagging the food and shipping it off to some unfortunate person who happened to buy that stuff. And they decided, well, let's post these videos up on YouTube because that would be hilarious. To Domino's credit, they actually pulled down the videos as quickly as possible. The two individuals were brought underneath criminal charges in Connecticut for some sort of federal offense with food. And the week after these videos came up, they lost 37% of their delivery traffic the week after. So these things do have an effect. And Domino's did everything right to kind of mute this with great PR, coupons, discounts, free pizza, you buy one, and it still went down 37%. And the week after that was down another 15%. So it was a laggard effect in trying to get back that good name for Domino's. So I don't want to scare everybody because there are some really interesting case studies too of things being done very well. Now, when I think of Little Debbie, I do not think of social media at all. I mean, it's like an old brand. Good brand, those little oatmeal cakes, fantastic. 99 cents, you can't beat them. Last year, they decided to launch a 100-calorie snack cake, which I can only imagine is about this big. But nonetheless, everyone's dieting. So they sent it out to the top 100 mommy bloggers. That is a fantastic strategy, right? You can do these lists on Google, top 100 tech blogs, So they sent it to the mommy bloggers, and the deal was, we're going to send you product and CD-ROMs with pictures and all this other stuff. All you got to do is write a blog post, just one. Good or bad, doesn't matter. We just want that type of traffic. That was smart because Google measures traffic and links back to a particular site. And so this generated a lot of Google traffic for Little Debbie. It was the most successful launch they've ever had in Little Debbie's career, these 100-calorie snack cakes. So even old school companies that you never would suspect using social media have great success. Early on, and I would say in 08, 09, there's this great debate whether you could monetize social media. And Dell was at the forefront of this. They've got a factory outlet that is only on Twitter and sells about $3.5 to $5 million a quarter of old and used equipment, refurbished equipment, things that they don't want in stock anymore, just trying to get rid of it. And that was a very interesting way to monetize it. Now, I will say this year, Facebook will do about $2.2 billion in revenue. Twitter will do about $150 million. I mean, Groupon obviously will do about $1.5 billion, $2 billion. I mean, these companies, these social media companies have figured it out. You can monetize what people are doing out in the real world. There's a market out there for these types of products. This list is worth its weight in gold, and this is how we actually go by and we figure out how to do social media for a particular company. We start off with surveys and interviews. We go in, we talk to everyone in your organization, or a good sampling of, and see what they're using. Are they using Facebook? Are they using Twitter? Do they have a blog? What is a blog about? And then based upon those surveys and interviews, we take down your entire staff and we just narrow it down to, you know, a good manageable number. We call it your social media team. And your social media team then breaks up their responsibilities. One's doing the Twitter action, one's doing the blogs, one's doing the Facebook. Listen, all this stuff is free and it's great, but it takes a ton of time and energy to do this. I'm good friends with Matt Dickman, and Matt is internationally renowned as one of the forerunners of social media. He was on this a long time ago. He spends 6 hours a day on this stuff. Hey, Matt, you're crazy. I mean, that's just nuts. I mean, I spend an hour or two, and I think I'm ahead of the curve. So it just takes a lot of time. You want to spread that responsibility out. You still want them to talk, because if someone's posting something on your corporate blog, you need to tweet about that, and likewise. Got to have a corporate policy. What can people say, what they can't say? Can they use your image, can they not? Editorial calendar, it's the biggest mistake anyone makes, is, oh, I'm going to write a blog, and they don't plan for what they're going to write about, and then it hits them. Blog's a lot of work. It's free, but it takes a lot of time. I mean, on my cool history, at one point I was doing 3 or 4 posts a week. Now I'm doing 2 or 3 a month, and I'm still getting 1,000, 1,500 people a week looking at that particular site. So it's slowed down. Email system, secret sauce. Pick an email platform, use it. And by that I mean your StreamSends and your MailChimps. You want to direct people to your content, and the best way to do that is through email. You know, they've logged in, they're comfortable with you. Don't buy lists. That's the worst thing you could possibly do. organically grow your own email list. And these email systems, MailChimp's free for the first 5,000 emails. It interfaces right into Facebook. It's got these wonderful templates, nice little tool to use. MailChimp? Yeah, MailChimp. Yeah, MailChimp.com. It's just an email system. So you log in your CSV file so you can outload, your email addresses, put them in there, and you can send out newsletters, coupons. It's a really dynamic system, and given the time frame, if anyone wants to talk to me after, I would be happy to talk about these types of systems. And I've got expertise in MailChimp and StreamSend and a few others, iContact. Analytics, we measure everything that we do out on the social media stream. The best way to do it, Google Analytics. It's free, gives you a code, and you can input that code into your website and all these other things. Measures everything. So for example, with emerging chefs, that was Steve mentioned during my introduction, we're finding out where our traffic is coming from and how. So I know, for example, that 60% of our traffic to emerging chefs is coming from Twitter and Facebook, our social media platforms, and that's where it should be coming from. I also know that 98% of our traffic comes from the United States, and surprisingly, only like half of that comes from Northeast Ohio. The rest of it's spread across the country. We're getting people from Russia, which makes me a little nervous looking at the site, and China and Ethiopia. I mean, just all these very unique places looking at emerging chefs, which is very, very cool. So what are the trends for the coming year? Group buying. I mean, Groupon is a perfect example. One coupon a day in each major metropolitan area, driving traffic to your particular store, product, or service. Huge. Absolutely huge. And when I first heard, like, one coupon a day? That's ridiculous. Well, it just overwhelms people. There's a great case study of a nail salon in Chicago which bought that day coupon for Groupon, and their usual output a week was something in the range of 1,000 clients a week. That one coupon was 18,000. So, I mean, the store just didn't have enough throughput to even do that amount of, I guess, nails and what have you. So you're going to see a lot more aggregation of group purchasing power through these sites. Groupon, I think its last worth was something in the range of like $25, $30 billion. They'll do $2 billion in revenue this year. Looks like they're going to go public. Very, very provocative. Knowledge. Wikipedia was a perfect example of people on the free writing about things that interest them and putting it up for everyone to read. And Quora is a new one, and Quora is a little different than Wikipedia. Wikipedia is definitive topics. It kind of follows the old encyclopedia format. Quora is different. Quora would be like, I'm starting a new job tomorrow. How should I treat my new coworkers? It's a very ephemeral question. I don't know. I just be me. But for a lot of people, that's a real serious question. And actually, people respond back to that question in Quora. So there's something like 1.5 million questions in there right now. It's growing rapidly. But again, it's the knowledge share, the Wikipedias, the Quoras, the KGBs, which is another application out there. So watch out for that. Can't speak enough about mobility. As of the end of January, 15 million iPads have been sold. And I love Apple. I got the Mac. I got my phone. When the iPad came out, I'm thinking, do I need another freaking Apple device? I mean, I've got Apple TV. I've got Apple, their airport. But this has been a revolutionary product. And every time, this is true, every time you see Apple bring out a new product, you see an absolute increase in social media usage. Because people were just more, it's ubiquitous. They're out and about, and they're using it. So there are a lot of marketing strategies on how to define applications to draw people to your business using these types of platforms. In fact, there's a new software architecture that costs surprisingly not as much as one would think. But you design your application using drag and drop. So even I could go in there and start pulling in an application. And as you're doing it, it's actually designing that application in 5 different platforms. So it's iPhone, iPad, it's doing, what's the other big one? Droid, iDroid pads. I mean, it's just ubiquitous, which is what you want. You want to compress that time for application development by using one platform. So expect that to increase. QR codes, anybody hear of these? So I was in a few. It's like a barcode that you're going to see. So I was in Europe last year. I saw one on a poster. You take a photo of it. It immediately asked me, do I want to buy tickets to this concert? Do I want to buy this poster? Do I want to download some of the music of the artist? So these are very unique codes, and the Downtown Cleveland Alliance, for example, here in Cleveland, Ohio, is putting these QR codes on buildings. So you can walk up to a building, take a snapshot of that QR code, and it'll tell you the vacancy and the amount of space available in that particular building, the amenities and such and so on. So the U.S. is, I'll be honest with you, the U.S. is always a little bit of a laggard in these types of applications. Europe and Japan, China, Vietnam, and Korea are obviously the leaders in this. But you're going to see in the next couple of years just the emergence of these QR codes everywhere. I'm going to just throw one right on my lapel as I go speak, and people can take photos of that. Monetization, and Facebook is going to at one point create its own currency, and you've already seen this happen. So if you go into the game section of Facebook, you'll notice this little symbol at the top left with a number next to it. Everyone in the universe who's in Facebook automatically gets 15 free credits, what they call credits. And you use these credits, then buy time in game. It could be a game, it could be a software application. So, and it could also be travel miles. It could, you could start turning these things. So the more you use Facebook, the more credits you'll get. But you can also buy the credits. They have some sort of established monetary value. Now this is huge because Twitter's contemplating doing the same thing. Obviously Google's doing the same thing. Meaning you won't be using your credit card to buy anything online anymore. You'll be using these various forms of credit that people have established within their own ecosystems or their own platforms. I don't know how it's all going to play out because we've heard this before. In the early aughts, you had all these online banks selling currency. You put in $10, you get $50 of this currency, and you could use it safely in all these different e-commerce platforms. But the thing is, Facebook just doesn't fail. It's like a juggernaut. And so I'm really interested to see how this works. They've noticed that their gaming systems, meaning the Zynga is their big gaming partner, it's actually gone up 55% since they've started the credits. So people are buying these credits and using them in the games. You can also cash them in for, the original concept was this: I'm playing World of Warcraft, for example, and I need to get to the next level, a particular sword that I can't find or a potion. I don't play these games, but I'm just saying that if you were, and you needed that sword, which is very important, you would essentially buy credit off the machine to secure that item so you could go to the next level. It's like cheating in a little way. You're just buying these things to move on. So, but I think this is a real trend that you've got to watch out for. Now, how does this affect e-commerce? I think this is going to have a dramatic effect on e-commerce. So if you've got an e-commerce site within Facebook, and most of the larger groups do, so if you go to the Target page in Facebook, it doesn't look like a Facebook page at all. It looks like a Target site. And you're one click away from buying something out of that site. You're going to see more and more people buying these types of social media credits. What Steve didn't say was like on Monday I took a new job, right? That's that whole job thing. So I'm now the director of e-marketing with Incivia, which is a group in downtown. I'd like to invite each and every one of you down into our offices because it's the third oldest building in Cuyahoga County, and it looks like you just walk into a big fantasy land. It's the weirdest place I've ever been in, but it's so cool, and we'd love to have you come down and talk to us, and be happy to spread more knowledge on social media and some of the other things that we're doing. So everyone here has an open invitation to come join us.